We covered the trade show, you know that. We covered the macro trends, and our group has mentioned that last week too, so I thought that was lovely. Okay, week 2, this was the outline for week 2, all right? Week 1, week 2. So week 1 was all about when and where to source, the macro issues. And week 2 was more about the innovation framework. Why do you need to know that? Because certain governments are creating incentives for firms operating in particular countries. But here's where the material gets interesting when we talk about, okay, what is in the quiz? Well, you need to know very, very well, what do we mean by supply challenges and the big problem? Because really, what was the big key word in this week 3? What was the key word? Cost. Cost is the key word. And awareness of cost helps you to better understand the mind of the supplier. Because then you know that the supplier will take steps to try and save costs. And those steps may not be in alignment with your need for a sustainable supply chain or quality. We talk about supplier strategies. I want you to think in terms of the 4. What do suppliers want? Actually, we're going to cover that again today too. We'll come back to that. Why do you think? I'll give you a story, quick story. I went and visited a supplier that makes cashmere sweaters. Put your hand up if you know what I'm talking about, cashmere. Okay, so the cashmere is grown by goats. Okay. Anyway, so this factory made the cashmere goats. By the way, presenting, remember? So this is a way of using intonation, all right? Animal noises does help sometimes. All right. Anyway, so this supplier made cashmere sweaters. They were selling these sweaters for 2,000 yuan in Shanghai and Beijing. They were also selling those sweaters for 400 yuan FOB for a major American distributor. And so the big question is, how come they sell it so cheap to this distributor in America, but it's so expensive, the same thing they sell in a shop in Shanghai and Beijing? Pardon? Bulk supply. Okay, so, and that actually gets to what we're talking about later tonight, about multinationals. They have much more buying power. So they buy the volume, and then, but not on top of that, they actually say, well, Mr. Supplier, we're not going to buy from you unless you bring it down to this price. And they'll just push the price down. And that's why some people come to me and say, how come I go directly to the factory in China, or I go into Shenzhen near the factory, and I have to spend twice as much for a t-shirt or this garment as when I go into Walmart or Gap or some US store in the US? It's because of that. You'd think it would be cheaper in China. Not really. It's because you've got major distributor with power that is actually putting a lot of pressure on the suppliers. Wow. Okay. So, there's a supplier strategy. Sometimes the big question with strategies here is, why do they still want to work with these big distributors? It's because sometimes they want to learn from them. Sometimes they want to develop their market. Sometimes they want to copy ideas from them. How does that? Because what happens is they'd have a contract with Gap, and then the Gap merchandiser comes to the supplier and say, we've got these new patterns, we want you to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're happy to actually supply it to Gap at cost, because then they'll use those patterns, they'll make it more than sell it in Shanghai and Beijing for triple the price. So they're actually learning from the merchandiser. The merchandiser brings new designs to the supplier. Suppliers have many different strategies for working with multinationals. Suppliers that work with Apple, some of them have told me they're happy to supply Apple, and more about that next week after next, even if they make a loss with Apple. Why? Because, why do you think that is the case? Who would like to answer that? Who would like to put their hand up? Someone new? Someone? Yes, sir. Yeah, and what can they do with that association? Marketing to who? Yes. Okay. Yeah, so a supplier said to me, we're happy to supply to Apple at a loss. Why? Because when we get the contract with Apple, then we can go to our other markets and say, we're a supplier of Apple, you can trust us. And then they make profits selling to other markets. Okay? So there's many different strategies that suppliers do, and it's not just about costs. they're happy to forego costs when it comes to working with large multinationals, because the multinationals bring other benefits to the suppliers. All right, so, okay. The factory challenges. Okay, that was week 3, right? Just keep that in mind. And actually that kind of dovetails into this week when we're talking about the multinational. Okay, week 4, negotiation. In week 4, the big idea here was, again, free circle control framework. Don't forget that is very, very important, because this is partly the first top circle. And this is all about structuring. It's all about negotiation. Is all about what? One word? Questioning. That's all. It's all about questioning. It's not about I want. It's about asking questions. So you put the focus on the supplier revealing information to you. Okay. Okay, a factory visit to help negotiations. Okay, that's why you use a factory visit. It's a source of questions, source of concern, source of value. 1, 2, 3. Because when you're at the factory, all that inventory is stacked up there. Oh, how come you got so much inventory? But you wouldn't be able to ask that question when you're at the trade show. I see. So the factory visit is a source of questions. It's a source of concerns, because you might see some problem. Okay, no static band for the people, workers. Remember, the static band is not to protect the workers. I know that was mentioned. The static band is to protect the componentry, because us humans, we have a way of generating static electricity. All right, so, okay. Source of terms, source of value. Okay, ex-post negotiation, as you know from the factory audits, what we came up with last week, maybe it's not the best factory that we should source from. Maybe it's a weaker factory, but we use more auditing to supplement the quality control problems that we have witnessed in the weaker factory. Okay. All right, contracts and payments. This is all about, if we want to get the contract right, we need to have a good understanding of what can go wrong. And lots can go wrong. And when you know that, this might happen, is it in the contract? This might happen, is it in the contract? Okay. Now, we know none of us are lawyers, and if you watch Mike's video, he says also, I'm not a lawyer. You need to hire a lawyer. But you need to be aware of some things so you can have a proper discussion with the lawyer and just not assume that the lawyer knows everything. Same with the auditor, and that's what we learned last week. What was last week? Last week was after we talked about the IoT startups. What was the big idea about the IoT startups? One word for people that haven't. Can I have some? Everyone's participating. What was the big word big theme for the IoT startups? The big theme. IP protection, exactly, all right? It's quite obvious that a startup is going to have challenges because they do not have the resources for what? Detail lawyers. They don't have the teams of lawyers that Apple and Huawei and all the big multinationals have. So if they don't have lawyers, then they need to have a substitute for the absence of the lawyers. And then what we learned with the IoT, and that's why we talked about it, some people say, hang on, this is global supply chain management. Why are we talking about IoT startups? Well, it's just to show you the reality of the situation. Okay, there are a lot of startups that are trying to do business globally these days. Okay, and so that's why we talked about that. Okay, and then we looked at the audit, the big idea of the audit, and thanks to the presenters last week, thank you. And who was the other group that presented? Over here, well done, great, both groups, great effort. And the big idea with the auditing was getting ideas for negotiation. It was about getting ideas for, okay, so we've got 2 factories, we can audit for both of them, but which one do you think we could work with sustainably? And you did the earphone, you did the picture frame, and I was shocked when you said that the FOB price was 28. Did you go on the website to find that, did you?
Yeah, the global source.
Fine, no, fine. But that was interesting because 2.5 years ago, they directed my face and said, we can do 23. Right? Maybe you think, it should be much higher than that now, but it's interesting. I didn't know what the latest price was. And our earphone factory, is it still operating today? Yes, and that's interesting. that's always something that a lot of buyers don't think about. Okay, will the supplier be around in 12 or 18 months' time? And you can help figure that out with the audit. It's not a technical thing you look for, but it's a holistic question you try to ask. Will the supplier be around in 12 months or 2 years' time?